I don't want to take much of that, and we'll just go to him directly. He's our Attorney General, the one and only Josh Shapiro.
Najee, thank you, man. It's wonderful to see you, and it's wonderful to see so many friends in this virtual setting. And Sheriff Joe, thanks for those beautiful words and that warm embrace that you're talking about, the physical embrace. I too hope that we're going to be able to do that again real soon. And I think a lot about this community that embraced me along the way and have helped me be able to serve as the people's lawyer, the people's attorney general. And I'm just so profoundly grateful for all of you. It's good to see my dear friend Jim Martin, and it's also good to see Charlie Dent looking well and and recovering and in good spirits. And so thank you to Schlossberg and Schweier and everyone else that's out doing the work today to make our community strong and safe. It really means a lot. I found myself with my family at our Seder table, our Passover Seder table, 3-4 weeks ago, and the time is sort of blurred right now, sitting alone in our dining room with a computer at the end of the table with all of Lori's family and my family and our extended family around the country. Finding myself somewhat dismayed at the fact that we had to have this virtual gathering. And by the end of our Seder for Passover, I actually found my spirits lifted up, because while we don't want to have a virtual embrace this way, we'd rather have that physical embrace that Sheriff Joe was talking about. You are able to connect with people on a different level that that maybe is in some ways even more spiritual. And I say that because I think many of us, I certainly am, are drawing on our faith even more now than ever before, drawing on that spirit that burns inside of us to help us get through these challenging times, these twin crises, right? The public health crisis that we're facing and the resulting economic crisis that has 30% of our workforce removed since February, and so many people struggling right now. And so I'm leaning on my faith. I'm leaning on people that I know all across this Commonwealth who are lifting me up, and I know lifting others up in their community. Najee, one of the great things that you've done in the Lehigh Valley is you have helped so many people through all of these various efforts know that they will be able to have resources, they'll be able to have a meal, they'll be able to have a quiet, safe place to worship, whatever it is that they need. And I look to you during this time of these twin crises as the difference makers. I grew up on Mr. Rogers, who's a famous Western Pennsylvanian. And Mr. Rogers said, in times of crisis, look for the helpers. And so when I think about the helpers around Pennsylvania, when I think about the helpers in the Lehigh Valley, I think of all of you who are making a difference, who are being called upon by our governor to be physically distant and practice proper hygiene and things like that for yourselves, which you are doing as a way to stop the spread of this virus. But then you're going a step further to be able to help others. And I'm not sure that there's a higher calling. And I can tell you that whether you're a practicing Jew, practicing Muslim, practicing Catholic, whatever the case may be, that is a common foundation for all of us, that we have a responsibility to our fellow man, our fellow woman, to do our part and to help lift them up and lift their spirits up and look after them. This is a moment in time that is challenging all of us to do that work, and you are doing it in an exemplary manner. I'm just proud to know you. I'm honored to be amongst you tonight. I'm grateful that you consider me a friend and know that I consider you a friend. We're fighting every single day in the Attorney General's office for you and the other 13 million Pennsylvanians who depend on us. We're going to continue to do our part, not only during this crisis, but in the days and weeks and months and years to come thereafter. Thank you so much for having me. I wish you all good blessings. Like Jim, I'm going to miss the good meal that we would otherwise have together. But my spirits are lifted up just by being in your presence. And I thank you, Najee, for having me tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Judge Shapiro. Honestly, it's been a difficult time for all of us, for all the communities here in Pennsylvania and Lehigh Valley and the whole country. But seeing leaders like you, like Jim, like Johanna, like Chief Marks and Michael Halkal give us endless reasons for hope. And I absolutely, I mean, trust me, within just the last hour, I feel like we're going to come much stronger out of this pandemic just because of the leadership that you guys are providing and the care and the compassion that you show to our communities and every else without any regard for color, for status, or what have you. Just true American principle. Thank you for everything that you do. We always pray for you. And I know, Josh Shapiro, you've been busy all day. Probably you're zoomed out for joining. And now we'll go to our next speaker, somebody that has never changed. Before he became a politician, was the same. When he was a politician, stayed the same. And after he retired politics, still the same. Lovely guy. I don't want you to wait much longer. Please welcome our former Congressman, Charlie Dent. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Najee, and good to see a lot of friends on this call too. Good to see Attorney General Shapiro and Patricia Martin. I saw that up there, Jim. I don't know. You got Johanna, a lot of friends. Susan Wild. Just a few things. This pandemic, as has been stated many times, has been so disruptive to all our lives. More important, though, it's forced us actually to bond with each other in ways I hadn't thought about. I mean, I've been here with my wife and children most of the time over the last several weeks, and it's been actually kind of gratifying. In spite of my illness, which I'm over, by the way, if anybody's concerned, I'm good. I ran 3 miles earlier today. Don't worry about me. I've been in good shape. By the way, if you do get sick, please donate your plasma. It's a good thing. You'll help save some lives. But bottom line is, this is a time where people really do try to, find their faith for reasons of personal comfort and reassurance. And this is one of those times. And to our Muslim friends who are on this Zoom call and around this community and around the world, we're thinking of you as during Ramadan. I know your plans for the Hajj this year have been terribly disrupted, but in solidarity with all of you, I've been fasting all day today and I can't wait to eat. So I wanted to tell you that you've been such good friends to me, and I'll always be forever grateful to the Lehigh Valley Islamic Center, this mosque in particular, for back in 1998 when my wife's grandmother died tragically in a car accident, and her family's construction business was actually building the Islamic Center at that time, and the Islamic community was so kind and so generous at that very difficult time for our family while they were actually building the center. So we will always remember that, and how kind and how warm this community is, and how it's important that more people from outside the Muslim community get to know you better and participate in some of the activities that you are very good at presenting to all of us. So that I just want to say thank you, and there's a lot of other people you want to hear from tonight, but thank you for inviting me. It's just great again to see so many friends, and happy Ramadan.
But thanks, Congressman Dent. Great to see you. And we definitely will have a meal once we can, unparalleled, like the never you've seen before, as President Trump would say. But our next speaker is going to be Congressman Susan Wild. But Susan, I since you are an active politician now, and you've seen the sheer threat that this pandemic has caused on people from different backgrounds, what can we do? What does about the census? How does the census come into play? Voting, all of these things, the practical things. Normally people don't pay much attention to politics, but now when leaders can actually be a matter of life or death for us, what can we do, Congresswoman?
Well, Najee, thank you for asking those very provocative questions that are so important. And let me respond to those before I move into the remarks that I wanted to give on the occasion of this Ramadan. I'm so glad you mentioned the census. It is so vital. I'm happy to say that in Lehigh County, we are ahead of the curve in terms of responses in Pennsylvania, but we're still nowhere near 100% response. And I'm sure all of you know that the resources that we are allocated as a region and as a state are very much dependent on our census response. And this matters to everyone. It matters to us in terms of the educational dollars that we see, in terms of the health dollars that we see, the federal resources that are sent to us as a result of our census response is absolutely vital to the functioning of our region. And let me just say, in these very troubled times, those dollars are going to be more important than ever. We know that our state and local municipalities are going to be struggling in the coming months, probably the coming next few years. And so having an accurate census count is so important. And the same thing when it comes to voting. It's, right now, I'm a little bit concerned that the last thing on people's mind is voting, because they're so concerned with their well-being, their family's well-being, and people that they care about, both from a health point of view and an economic point of view. But I just want to remind everybody that voting has long-term consequences. Voting isn't something that you do one day and forget about a couple of days later. The consequences are that the people who lead the community, whether it's at the local level, state level, or federal level, will be determined by your vote. And one of the things that I always want to congratulate the Muslim community on is your level of engagement in government, in politics, and in voting. So I really am so appreciative of how engaged you have been as a community. With that, I just want to say thank you to everyone across this community for allowing me to speak during this virtual presentation. Just as Josh mentioned a few minutes ago, my family also participated in a virtual Seder during Passover. I was really looking forward to this Ramadan event at Malv because I never leave with even close to an empty stomach, and the food is just wonderful, and quite honestly, it's better than Passover food. So I'm looking forward to that large in-person celebration that you've promised us, Naji. And I'm sad that we can't be together to break the fast in person this year, but it is a joy to see all of you. I'm thankful for Zoom. I'm thankful for the ability to see people's faces and to be reminded of those close relationships that we have across this entire community. And I hope that it helps all of us manage the challenges of this time in good spirits. But what I've been reflecting on this since you asked me, Naji, to participate in this event. And it seems to me that the lessons of Ramadan have never been more clearly illustrated in our collective reality than they are right now today. This is a beautiful tradition. It demands sacrifice, yes, but ultimately it's about compassion. Ramadan is about putting the most vulnerable members of our society first. It's about having the humility to reflect on who we are and who we must become. And it's about honoring the blessings we have been given and pledging to do right by them, whether it comes to our families and loved ones, our fellow citizens of the world, or our planet itself. So as we gather today in this moment of crisis, and we are indeed in a crisis, to ask ourselves how we should move forward, I think we would do well to draw upon the universal principles of the Muslim faith, principles that speak to our shared humanity. These principles tell us to provide care for all people, to stand with the poor and the hungry, to transcend the old divisions that we have that have held us back from building a future of peace and justice for all. These are truly wonderful goals, ideals, and principles, and I'm happy to share them with you. As your representative, I am very conscious of my responsibility to protect our most vulnerable neighbors during this pandemic and economic crisis, those who are sick or at disproportionate risk because of underlying health conditions, their age, their residence or lack of residence, those with disabilities, those who have lost their jobs, low-income workers, And there are just so many that it's almost impossible to name them all. I am determined to honor with actions rather than just words our frontline health workers and our other frontline workers by providing them with the PPE and hazard pay and strong and vigorously enforced workforce safety regulations to keep them safe on the job and make sure that we have affordable childcare solutions that work for their families. And I'm committed to supporting the workers and the small businesses and the medium-sized business owners of our community who have worked far too hard to see everything that they have worked for, that they have built, be threatened by this crisis. I know that we are going to stand together, and I know that we are going to draw on the strength of our community. And our Muslim community is very much a part of our community. And I am so grateful for everything that you and Malv and all of the mosques in this area do to be integrated within our community, to reach out to the community, to offer educational opportunities for people to learn more about the Muslim faith and everything that it stands for. In the face of those who seek to stoke the flames of division and hatred, we will never answer that our community is divided. Instead, we will answer that our community is a mosaic, that our diversity is what makes us who we are and unites us in shared wisdom and shared purpose, common purpose for everyone's good and well-being. And while I have the honor of serving you in Congress, it's clear to me that the work ahead of us will not be the work of members of Congress or politicians or even elected officials alone. We will all need to pull together and work together. And together, drawing on the ideals embodied in the holy month of Ramadan, I know that we can meet this challenge, this moment, and protect our people. I know that we can emerge from this crisis and can shape a future that is more equitable, more just, more compassionate, and more peaceful. I look forward to continuing to working alongside all of you in this spirit. And I look forward to the day when we can break bread in person once again. Ramadan Mubarak, everyone. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Congressman Wild, for the nice words. So it's really this whole pandemic, you see a lot, so many people stepped up and did a fantastic job and remembered also the blessing that comes with doing this fantastic job. We are all here people of faith. And I think we need, by the way, there are, besides the people that are watching here in Zoom, we have it in Facebook and YouTube, and a few other mosques are streaming. So I think probably we'll have close to 100 people watching together. So I'll appeal to everyone to continue to check in your neighbors, your friend, and remember to embody the core value of our faith. And when we build this society, actually we have to rebuild, Congressman Woman, our society. And if we build the society with, you know, with the things that our faith teaches us, which is mercy, love, and justice, I think we'll be better for it, and so will the world. Our next speaker is the newly minted District Attorney of Northampton County. His name is Terry Hawk, but he's showing up as Linda. So I have a question for the district attorneys. What is it with changing your names? Why is only Jim Martin and Terry Hawk that are changing names? Go ahead, Mr. Hawk.
I can answer that very simply, and I'll speak for Jim as well. Neither me or Jim know how to do this, so our wives are doing it for us, and I'm sure he would agree. But thank you, Najee, for having me tonight in this very, very special time of year. And I hope and I pray that everyone is having a blessed Ramadan in the Muslim community. The interesting perspective, or the perspective that we have as law enforcers, and I think Jim would agree, and the police chiefs and Sheriff Hanna, is that we happen to see the very worst in people most of the time. And when this happened, when the pandemic struck and the restrictions started, I was very concerned. I was very concerned that everybody would split into groups and we would have problems. And I haven't seen that yet. And that's from a district attorney's perspective, that's an important and a gratifying thing. You, Najee, and the Muslim community took me in almost immediately when we first met about a year ago. and I had an opportunity to see a worship. And the theme that's been going through this evening tonight, of course, is the food. And I was exposed to that and loved it, of course. But it was the brotherhood and the sisterhood that I saw was special. And I see where it remains. I see where there were 300 or so meals that were donated and given out just this past weekend by your community. Very impressive stuff. But as we go through this, we recognize that there are people in pain, real pain. I have family members that were diagnosed with this. I've had family members that are out of work because of this, and friends. And I know the pain that is on both sides of the aisle. And it is important that we remain, not get together, not support, but we continue to support, because I've seen that happen and I've seen it continue, and it remains very impressive. The Muslim community is a huge part of that. Your example has always been steadfast. Your example has always been enormous in the Lehigh Valley. And I know specifically in Northampton County that you have an example of love and compassion. And it is a little ironic that we're experiencing this pandemic through what is now Ramadan, because this has to continue. We have to continue the sacrifice, but at the same time, we have to continue the compassion, and we have to continue to help each other and try to understand what everyone is going through. And from our perspective here at the District Attorney's Office, we've had a great response. We continue to work hard. Our workers come in at great risk to themselves and continue to work through all the trials and tribulations of this pandemic. And I know the same is going on in Lehigh County, and we're really working together in this. And this has to continue. I cannot emphasize that enough, because this is the best way to approach this. It's the best way to minimize this catastrophe that we're in the middle of. So I want to thank you, Najee, for not only for inviting me, but for showing, for being an example in the Muslim community, and for the Muslim community being an example for our overall community. Because the more compassion and sympathy that we show to each other, I'm sure the quicker and the easier it is that we'll get through this. So thank you for having me and listening to me for these couple of minutes.
Thank you very much for your nice and kind words. I know we're running out of time, so we'll move to Rabbi Seth Phillip next.
Wow. Okay, Najee, unmuted me. Start my video. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. So the long hair and the beard that I am wearing is not because my barbershop, Jimmy's, is closed and has been closed, but 15 days before Ramadan began, the Jewish community moved into a period of mourning.
Here, yeah, right there.
For a plague that struck in the 2nd century and killed 24,000 of the students of Rabbi Akiva. We're told that the plague struck them as a punishment for their disrespect of each other. That plague did run its course, but we remember that lesson from year to year in the period of time after Passover through Pentecost, through Shavuot. So the hair and the beard is a sign of that. Ironically, this year, of course, a biblical lesson of thousands of years ago comes true, and we look into our community and our nation and see those who are indeed suffering. The rabbis told this story and gave its cause for the plague because of disrespect. Those who should have been the closest to each other, the most respectful, students learning the word of Hashem, the word of God, disagreed in manners that brought disrespect. So I say that as a cautionary lesson, while none can say what the cause of modern day plagues are. certainly the more we are respectful of each other, the more we are willing to listen to each other, the better chance we have of being deserving of the favor of our Creator. This gathering, as with yesterday's gathering, and I so give our dear Congresswoman Susan Wild credit for calling together religious leaders, the imams, myself, ministers. We're here together to learn what she is doing for faith communities. And this gathering, again, we've all made the obligatory, we're missing the food, but I hope that the spirit of civic courage comes through. We are celebrating each other as brothers and sisters who are making genuine sacrifices for the betterment of our community. And we will do that because we are called to do that. And at some future date, we will have the in-person kiss on the right cheek, kiss on the left, and kiss one more time, the hugs and so forth. Behold how good and how wonderful it is when brothers and sisters can indeed be together. So let us live in hope, my brothers, my sisters. We're told indeed in Psalm 30, weeping comes at the nighttime. And this is a time of darkness and a time of weeping for so many. But with our actions, with the goodwill, the leadership, and those who are on this broadcast who've shown the civic courage to be our leaders, show us the high and principled ways. Yes, it is a time of darkness, but there are so many beacons of light. So we will live in the hope that, yes, while there is a time for weeping in darkness, joy will come in the morning, for that glorious morning for our community, our families, our city, and our nation. May it be the will that, inshallah, and Be'ezrat Hashem, we shall gather, brothers and sisters. Thank you, Naji. Thank you, Imam, and thank you to our leaders.
Thank you very much, Seth Philip. And we'll do a big, huge virtual hug at the end if you want to stay for that one. Next, we're running out of time, but next we'll go to Pete Schweier, who is the state rep from our area. I don't know, I know they had a long session today in Harrisburg. So Peter Schweier.
Hi, Naji.
Okay, good.
Hi, Naji. Yeah, it was another award-winning day in the Pennsylvania General Assembly today. However, this conversation, this meeting, this Zoom presentation for Ramadan is a wonderful way to kind of bring us back to our shared human experience. The truth is we've all been struggling, and I think everybody's been saying that. And the fact that we're able to come together like this from across the Lehigh Valley, from our offices, from our homes, from our places of worship, to celebrate such a beautiful month of reflection, of really reaching out to do our very best and be the best people that we possibly can be, is a really wonderful way to sort of refocus and to sort of recenter after what has been an incredibly stressful time for all of us in our community. And so I know we're running out of time. I know that Representative Schlossberg is also on this, and I want to make sure I leave some time for him to be able to address everyone. But I'd like to share and echo the sentiments that so many people have said before. The community center has been a welcoming center for all of us. My children have been up there, and it is just such a wonderful, wonderful community asset for all of us. You know, I'm a kid who went to Catholic school. I was 17 or 18 years old before I really understood what religious diversity was. From me and from my perspective and the way I was raised, people weren't inherently good or bad. You were just either Catholic or you weren't. And if there's anybody who's raised in the Catholic traditions on this, you sort of understand what I mean. And then as I got older and as I was exposed to more and more faiths, people from different walks of life, my experience, my life has become richer. And I certainly appreciate very, very sincerely the opportunity to get to know folks from every walk of life. Like I said, I was a kid who went to Catholic school, and I was Mike Schlossberg's best man in his wedding. And the opportunity to build relationships with our Muslim community, with some of my really dear friends who are of the Muslim traditions and Muslim faiths, and from a wide variety of communities from across the world, is just very, very helpful. It makes me a better member of the legislature, but more importantly, it makes me a better person. And I really, truly appreciate this. I appreciate welcoming back. I will also comment on the food, and judging by the way some folks look here, I don't know that any of us really do need to miss a lot of meals, but I'll take one nonetheless, because it really is one of my favorite days of the year. So thank you, Naji. Thank you, Imam. Thank you, everyone, for having us, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. I know we have a lot of speakers. I know some of them have to drop, so we'll get to everyone, inshallah. Just be patient. My brother Mafzul, if you can just unmute Jim Martin. He has some wisdom to share with us, please.
He's unmuted
Oh,
already.
thank you, Naji. I have to rebut my friend Linda Hauk. Terry, I am certainly able to do this. The only reason that my wife's name appears is that I am on her laptop computer. I know Linda set you up, but I did it myself. I couldn't resist.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Thank you, Jim, for sharing this with us. Next, where I know he has to go, but he's kind enough to stay, is Sheikh Yahya Rodas from Al Maqasid in Albertus. Yahya Rodas.
Greetings to all of you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Naji, very much for inviting me to this occasion. And really seeing all of you and hearing all of your beautiful words, it really is a means of great hope. And as an implant to this community, I have an interesting story. Born in Kansas City, Missouri, spent most of my formative years in the Bay Area, in the Silicon Valley, and then spent quite a bit of time overseas in the Middle East and in other places. I've traveled widely. And so I, in one sense, do have a foot in the West and a foot in the East. And to really see this beautiful example that we see in the Lehigh Valley community, where there's so much goodwill and there's so much cooperation, this is unique. And yes, there is places in the United States where this is also happening, but I do think this is unique. I've traveled widely through the Muslim community in the United States, and to really see all of these beautiful people that come from so many different backgrounds, faith-based and in different positions that are in service of different sorts. This really fills me with gratitude, and I just wanted to express that gratitude to all of you, and thank you all for being a part of this time of year with us, which is a very special time of year. And as was previously indicated, I do think there is overlap between some of the overarching themes of the blessed month of Ramadan and what we've been forced to do during this pandemic. And Ramadan for Muslims is really a time to reorient ourselves, primarily with God, but also to redefine our relationship with time, redefine our relationship with community, redefine our relationship with even the natural world. And this is something that this pandemic has also forced us to do. And so as we as human beings experience everything that we're experiencing, just the way that we teach ourselves to read a book, we also need to teach ourselves to read signs in creation. We say that, you read people, but you also need to learn to read. We all need to learn to read signs in creation, because the world speaks to us. And as one of the poets said, is that the entire world is meaning set up in symbols. And anyone who comes to know that will truly be of the intelligent. We need to learn to read deeply in what the world is telling us. And one of the themes that I've heard people discuss tonight, which I think is really important, is the importance of diversity. And biodiversity is essential to the environment. Without it, the environment will not remain. And one of the things that I hope that we can all, as Muslims, but as a greater community as well, whether it be experiencing the month of Ramadan or be responding to the difficult circumstances from the pandemic, to have this push us to a heightened sense of awareness, a heightened sense of consciousness, where we are not only just aware of those around us, but acutely aware of all of the people that are around us, so that we can give back and to really be the way that we need to be for everyone and everything that is around us. So thank you all very much for all of your words, and I am also looking forward to meeting in person with many of you next time that we meet. Thank you.
I think, Sheikh, maybe next time we can come to your center and have an awesome meal there.
You are most welcome. You are
Okay.
most welcome anytime.
Done deal, done deal. Okay, our next speaker is Mike Schlossberg. He's a state rep representing part of Allentown. Can you hear us?
I can, Najee. Can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Well, good. Folks, it's wonderful to be with all of you today, even if it is just virtual. It is good to physically see many friends that I haven't seen before. I have been joking throughout this period. It's really fascinating to see what people look like with long hair. Rabbi Seth, you and I are in the same boat as our curly Jewish froze here start to curl upon themselves. And I will add, some of you either don't have hair growth anymore or are illegally getting your hair cut, in which case District Attorney Martin and District Attorney Huck, I think you know what to do. But it is good to be here. If we hear the phrase, this is a difficult or unique time, one more moment, I think we're all going to have our heads explode. So let me instead pivot to, it's a difficult thing. The truth is that there's no sugarcoating this. As Congressman Dent, it's good to see you here, and as I'm sure you can sympathize, Representative Schweier, Congressman Wild, we've all said this repeatedly. There's no good decisions to be made at this moment. I think there's all decisions to be made that are just slightly a little bit less terrible. Now, those of us who are on this phone, I hope and I would imagine, are among the lucky ones. We're in a safe home. We hopefully have food to eat, shelter over our heads, and are not facing the immediate prospect of economic ruin. But this is a holy time of year for my Islamic brothers and sisters, a time which I know calls upon us to be compassionate and reflect. How we choose to experience this very sacred and special time is up to all of us. But I think all of us have the opportunity to make that conscious choice. My limited knowledge of Islam teaches me and informs me that Ramadan is a time of reflection. It is a time for turning inward and reflecting upon the values that make you a compassionate and good person. Those values have never been more tested, but at the same time, I'd argue they've never been more apt. As we've seen in public office, this is a moment where people are desperate, where people are suffering, and where all of us have an even further increased need to do good deeds for the people we serve. I'm lucky enough to serve the people of 132nd District. Our district attorneys serve people of entire counties. And all of you and all of us serve your congregation and our fellow man and woman. We have a unique opportunity in this moment. And to my brothers and sisters, I would say, I hope you use it as you reflect on this sacred and spiritual time. I hope you not only look inward, but look outward at the suffering of the community and at what all of us can do together to make things a little better. Thank you very much for allowing me to join you today. It is an honor as always. And Najee, it's been said before, Congresswoman Wild was correct. The food at the end of Ramadan is significantly, significantly better than anything I've ever eaten during a Seder. And I can't wait until we can be together again and I can embarrass myself by getting food all over my shirt. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Deal. Okay. Our next speaker is Mariah.
Thank you. And I do have a haircut, Mike, but I don't, my hairdresser FaceTimed with my son who cut my hair, so it was legal. I want to just say Ramadan Mubarak to everyone, and I'm just so happy to be here. And I want to tell you a little bit about my Ramadan. As some of you know, we have a refugee community center, and some of our refugees are out of work or facing some kind of tough times. And so I had gotten some gift cards to Elias and hadn't gotten around to getting them. And the day I took them to an Afghan Muslim family and a Sudanese Muslim family that lived near the church, I realized it was the first day of Ramadan. And I just felt such joy to be able to give them gift cards and say Ramadan Mubarak, because I know that charity is a really important part of the Ramadan for people, and I've felt like because everybody's staying home, I was able to do something kind of on your behalf, and it just made me really happy to be able to wish them Ramadan Mubarak and to offer them something. And I went back and took them some other things later. And then this morning, we've started doing our ESL classes by Zoom. And one of the questions that was asked, it's the first time I'd kind of joined them, was, well, if you could go back to another time, when would you go? And I said, I'd like to go back to the time of Jesus. And the 4 women refugees who were on were Muslims from Iraq, Syria, from Sudan, and from Eritrea. And they started asking me questions about how I understood Jesus to be alive. And I would answer in English, and then they would translate into Arabic for one another. And we had this wonderful conversation, not proselytizing or anything. They were just curious, and they're sharing about how they understood things. And at least 2 of them said that whether they wanted to go was to go to Mecca. And so for them to be able to share their experience, my life has been so greatly enriched by the Muslim community, from Malv and from this whole community. My faith, my life has been so enriched. And so I'm just so grateful, and I'm grateful to be part of this Iftar tonight. And so thank you for blessing my life. And I hope that we will continue all to be a blessing for one another, both in this time of Ramadan and beyond, in this challenging time. So thank you.
Thank you, Mariah, for always being there for us. And definitely our life has been enriched also by knowing you and working with you. So thank you. May God continue to bless you with his mercy and strength, and give you great leadership skills. Next is our newly minted Lehigh County Controller, Mark Pensley.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So as a normal Najee tradition, he told me 2 seconds ago that I would be speaking. So I appreciate that, Najee. Gave me just a couple of minutes. You know, one of the things that I would say, first off, I think that I wish everyone an easy fast, but I think that Ramadan couldn't have come, honestly, at a better time. You know, it's really a time to reflect and a time to feel hunger. And it gives you an opportunity to actually feel what many other people are feeling. You know, as Mike Schlossberg said, many of us are fortunate and we have homes, we have food that we can eat, but there are many that can't. And what a great time to experience that and understand that. It's also good to see how many Jews are on the call tonight. So I won't talk about my Seder, but I will tell a quick Jewish story, which is something that we tell our kids, which is there's a young man who has a good friend, and he goes out and he tells stories about his friend, like not kind stories. And he goes around town doing that. And finally, the friend says something to him, and he apologizes, but the friend doesn't accept it. He apologizes again, the friend doesn't accept it. And so finally, he goes to the rabbi and says, look, you know, I did this stuff, I apologized, I'm not sure what to do. So the rabbi says, well, you know, go get your feather pillow and meet me outside, and we're going to go to the tallest building in the town. And so he does that. And the rabbi and the child walk up to the tallest building, and they rip open the feather pillow, and they toss it, or they toss all the feathers out of the pillow, rather. And it goes all over the community. And, you know, you could see it, you know, from the top of the building. And the rabbi said, okay, and now I want you to go get all of those feathers and put it back in the pillow. And the child was like, well, I can't do that. The feathers have gone everywhere. And the rabbi was like, well, that's how come your friend didn't accept your sorrow, because you can't go and just pick everything up. Now, we tell our children that story to teach them about how to talk well. However, that same story could be used for goodness. Those feathers don't have to represent evil speech, but rather can represent all of the good that can be done in a community. And I would say that I'm proud to be with all of you because of all of the feathers that you guys have spread throughout, our city, our town, our county. Each of us on here, and especially the Muslim community, who, 15 years ago, I barely knew, and now I feel a part of, and I have adopted Imam Bashar as my Imam. And I just wanted to wish you all a good Ramadan and a peaceful one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next, we'll go to Robert Reed. He's a special assistant to the Attorney General. Mr. Reed. Are you still there?
I'm here. Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. Well, it's a privilege to be here. Thank you very much. I didn't expect I was going to be saying anything, but I spoke with Naji earlier today, and I guess one of the things, this is first thing that's coming to my mind, but the reason that the airlines are doing so poorly is because Naji's not flying anywhere. But I have really appreciated my relatively new relationship over the last 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years, with Naji and the whole Muslim community in the Lehigh Valley. And I've had long-standing relationships with Jim Martin and Sheriff Hanna and others, and working to serve the community. And I just love the idea of bringing people together in a time like this, in all times, because relationships are so key. Some people are, and I've heard it in this call tonight, kind of sad, and I understand why, that you can't hug someone, you can't physically touch someone. But, if you look at historically in 1918, the last major pandemic, they didn't have Zoom, they couldn't do this, they didn't know what was going on. And here it is, we can be with friends, we can share good feelings, we can say happy Ramadan, we can appreciate the kind of the sacrifice that this holiday involves. And so it is inspirational to see people who are motivated to do good works. I know that's what Naji and the Muslim community is doing in the Lehigh Valley. I would just say this, that I work with Josh Shapiro, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. But I want you to know that as a public servant, and you have a number of them on this Zoom meeting tonight, I want you to know that if there's any issue of any kind that you would like some advice, of course you can go to Jim or Terry or some of the other folks on this phone call, but on this Zoom meeting. But you can also come to the AG's office. I know there's lots of issues relating to consumer protection. There's lots of issues relating for people, mortgages and rents and unemployment and all sorts of stuff. And that's, the AG's office does all that stuff. So maybe that's far afield from talking about Ramadan, but the bottom line is that this is an opportunity for all of us to come together. And I really appreciate this opportunity to be here and to hear all the fine comments that everyone's had to say and see all your faces. That's the most important thing. Thank you.
That's why I love you. You never give up on me, even after the last meal we had and the issues you had with it. But we'll do it again in a nice way. Yep. Our next speaker is Philip Armstrong. He's Lehigh County Executive Philip Armstrong.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, Mike Schlossberg, my haircut came in a kitchen, okay? So as a lot of other people have done the same thing. But first of all, Naji, I'd like to thank you very, very much to have me be part of such a great experience tonight with all of these beautiful people. And I really mean that. Sheriff Hanna and I are almost like brothers in the last couple of years. Man, I've never known before. Walking into your mosque on Shad Avenue a number of years ago, uninvited. And before I know it, I was sitting down, eating, breaking bread, and definitely enjoying the food. But more than the food, it was the compassion that you showed my wife and I. This is, I think, why I was so attracted to getting to know more about what was going on. And over the last several years, really come to respect the Muslim faith and community and their role that they're playing in Lehigh County. I really want everybody to know how hard the people of Lehigh County are working right now in this pandemic. Our first responders, our 9/11 people, our people out at our Cedar Brook and Cedar Brook Fountain Hill, the people down in the voter registration office. As Congressman Wild said, you can now vote by mail, but we have people now every night working in our voter registration office and Saturdays, making sure we get all of those ballots out. And it's coming to an end now where you can still apply. So please get the word out that, it's votespa.gov, that all you have to do is go there, fill it out. We will send you that application. We have had a number of people send in applications and were rejected because I guess they didn't have me as a history teacher. This is a party's nominating election. Some people are applying for the ballot as an independent. It's going to be rejected. This is, as by definition in the state of Pennsylvania, it's a closed primary, meaning the Democrats will vote for a Democrat, the Republicans will vote for a Republican. Now, in November, that is not the case, but please get that message out. And again, as Congressman Wild said, we have been preaching for the last year how important this census is to not only your local municipalities, but the county as a whole. And yes, we are a little bit above the curve of the state, but not near where we need to be to make sure we get the funding for our social services, our hospitals, our infrastructure repairs. So it does matter. And I know all of you on this call have done that already, but please use your influence to remind others how important that is. And I know I am a hugger. That's why I guess I embraced the friendship I had at the mosque, because we just instantly hugged each other. I don't mind the virtual hugs, but I can't wait till we can literally get back, shake hands, hug, kiss on every side of the cheek. But I'm sure that day is going to come. But I want everybody to know how hard the Lehigh County employees are working to make sure all our services are available to our entire population during this. And I want to thank everybody on this call for sharing all of the wonderful messages that they had tonight. Najee did tell me he was keeping me near the end to save the best for last. So thank you, Najee. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for all people of the county for the great work that they're doing. Please convey our regards. And as you said, all of our mosques in the area, and we have many of them, we want people to feel that they can come uninvited because we have an open door policy. We'd love to see our neighbors. So anywhere you go and see a mosque, please feel free to walk in. I am sure you will feel the warmth and welcome. Our next speaker is Dr. Al Khair from the newly mosque in Tillman Street. Go ahead, Dr. Khair.
I just want to greet everybody and appreciate being in this wonderful group and share an intimate and honest greeting. I'm overwhelmed with the nice, kind wording that everybody had put forth. We are a melted spot from all walks of life, trying to do the best for all of us, for the whole world. The world anymore becomes very small with this technology that we could share our most intimate feeling, sorrow, pain, discomfort. And sadly, it has to be at this time where the pandemic had seized a lot of wonderful people's lives. It's I feel very saddened by this. Yet, hopefully, we use it as a point to grow, to communicate with one another for the goodness of the everybody. And I cannot measure how happy I am to, for the first time, to hear, listen, and basically meet face to face, even though it's very hard naturally, but Zoom had made it very easy for us to meet face to face and hear each one own emotion. I wish the best for everyone. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and let's work together from on and forth. And everyone is welcome, uninvited, to any of the Muslim community masajid at any time. I thank you all for being with us, and God bless. And thank you,
Dr.
Naji.
Khair. Thank you, Dr. Khair. Akil, is Akil back on? I know he had some network issue. Akil Sayed from the Eastern Mosque. Is Akil on?
Don't think he's on. Maybe you can just go to Ahmed from Care.
Okay, then Ahmed from Care, you're next.
Hello everyone, good evening. This is Ahmed Tekiroğlu. I work statewide for Care Philadelphia, but I'm a resident of Allentown. It's been 3 years, and I feel blessed to be in such a community where there are multiple mosques that are active in the civic engagement arena, in the interfaith arena, and to see all of you as part of this. I was just reflecting that, while we all want to go back to normal, I think some aspects of the normal were not so good to everyone in our community. So as a commitment to going back to normal while trying to leave out some of the inequalities, some of the problems in our communities, that's a commitment from all of us, and it's just lovely to see all of you being in this work together. Just to add to the voting issue, on Saturday evening with Amgage and with All Voting is Local, we are hosting a webinar in multiple languages about voting, the mail-in ballots and the voter registration deadlines. We hope that all our communities will be there and we'll all continue to build together. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I think this brings the end of our speaker. I just wanted to tell you, at least for myself, as complicated and heartbreaking this pandemic that has been, hearing you and your stories and your determination, compassion that you shared with us, give us endless reasons to hope. And thank you for sharing your spirituality and your inspiration with us. May God continue to bless us. May God continue to bless you, bless the United States of America. And now back to Mirza. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Naji. Thank you. I would just want to say thank you all for joining in on behalf of Muslim Association of Lehigh Valley. We want to thank you all for making this time for this particular event. We are at the time of almost breaking of fast. I would ask our Imam Bashir to just make just 2-second dua, and then we end this call. Imam Bashir.
Allahumma ameen. Oh Allah, we ask in your name that you accept from us all of our prayers and our supplications, that you cleanse us from all of our illnesses, our ailments, and our sicknesses, that you purify our hearts and our bodies, and you protect us from all forms of harm, that you uplift this pandemic and this calamity from the whole of humanity, that you restore the health and the well-being of our communities. We ask, oh Allah, that you bless this blessed month of Ramadan, you bless every one of us with accepted fasting and prayers, that you allow us to reach the day of Eid with all of these prayers and all of these forms of worship accepted in a state of rejoicement and celebration. And we ask that you unite us in words and actions that will bestow your worthiness and your paradise upon us. We ask that you protect, you preserve all of the first responders, all of the health officials, all of our government leaders, and all of the various essential workers in every field, that you continue to protect, preserve them, uplift them, and you continue to guide them in the best of direction. We ask you to answer our prayers and our supplications and unite us in all that would be befitting to your worthiness and your love and mercy upon us. Allahumma ameen. O Allah, accept from us our fast and our prayers, and forgive us our shortcomings, and bestow upon us the reward of the night of power that is more rewarding than 1,000 months of ibadah. Allahumma ameen. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much.
You can all do a virtual hug now if you want.
Thank you all.